right, so Arden, take us back before real estate, because you got a really cool story. Like, what were you doing, and what even like started to whet your appetite for this business to begin with?
That's a great question. I went to school to be an engineer. Since I was really young, I've always planned on being an engineer. My dad's a construction worker. He used to be a steeplejack, which for anyone who doesn't know, like a steeple's the pointy part on the top of a church. So I grew up like going to work with him, Lincoln Logs. Like I was very much into construction. Engineering was always the natural progression of where I expected to go. Went to college for engineering, graduated with a degree in structural engineering and a minor in mathematics. And then I moved to Portland and worked as a structural engineer for 4 years. And meanwhile, after about 6 months of living in Portland and paying what at the time I felt were super high rents, my now husband, then boyfriend, and I we started looking around for multi-units. We actually connected with a great Keller Williams agent, and she helped us buy our very first 3-unit in Portland. We had an awesome experience with her, and then we spent that first year living in the second unit of our multi in Portland, and we just started renovating while we were living there. Originally, that was kind of we just were thinking we just wanted to buy a multi instead of a house so we could stay in the city, and very quickly got hooked by the real estate industry.
So it sounds like, I mean, you brought up the extremely high at the time rents that kind of were an impetus towards even thinking about, all right, well, what are we going to do differently? And, that's pretty perceptive, I feel like, because I mean, you're not that old. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, like how old were you at that point?
So we had just graduated. We, at that point, we bought our first one when I was 22, which was in 2018.
So you're like 22 years old, and to actually like look up and be like, wow, rents are like really, really high. Maybe we should solve a problem here and like do something differently. I'm curious, like, what did that, like, how did you start to find answers? Like why, I mean, buy a multi-unit. I think that's something that for a lot of people would be really, how did you even arrive at that as a solution?
Yeah, given like my now husband and I, we met in engineering school. He also works full-time as an engineer. And we're very like numbers. He actually works as a manufacturing engineer. So like very efficiency driven. And we just like, felt like we were throwing, like at the time it was only $1,100 for like a pretty big 1-bedroom in Portland, but we were just like throwing it out the window every month. And we're like, this feels crazy. Like we're never going to see that money again. We had started to sort of learn about mortgages, and we're like kind of paying for someone else's mortgage. And so then we were like, maybe we should buy a house. But again, we like didn't want to move out like into the suburbs. We really liked living like the apartment lifestyle. And so we just like got online. I think we actually found like Bigger Pockets way back then, that website. And we like downloaded a spreadsheet about like cash flow and just like edited it ourselves. And we also had a really great realtor that I give a lot of credit to for making sure we had a good first experience, because the story could have been different had it not been. And yeah, to be honest, I can't really remember exactly like how we got to that point. But once we had that spreadsheet, we were in.
Well, and what I'm hearing is you saw this problem, right? Or this challenge, and you knew what you wanted and what you didn't want. So you started to self-educate to allow yourself to make a better decision, obviously leading to the acquisition of this first asset. And I'm wondering what it was about that first property that for you made real estate something you wanted to spend more time in to eventually get you to where you are today.
I feel like it wasn't the asset. I feel like it was the spreadsheet, because like any good engineer, she found a spreadsheet and she fell in love.
These numbers are starting to make sense and look a lot better. Is that what it was for you guys, Arden?
Yeah, the thing we really liked about the very first 3-unit we bought was when we went, now looking back on it as a full-time realtor, we just like went to an open house without telling our realtor, which is like shocking to me. I'm like, never do that. But we did, and we called her after to say like, oh, we just found like stopped by this open house because we just saw the sign, and there was a bunch of other people there. And it was listed as a 3-unit with 2-bedroom apartments and a 3-bedroom apartment. And as soon as we walked in, we were like, these are huge. They all have a living room and 2 dining rooms. This is really a 3-bedroom. On the first two floors of units are 3-bedroom units. And so from there, with our handy spreadsheet that we had downloaded, but then manipulated to be our own, we realized after doing whatever online research that the numbers all worked out, and we would end up not only having our mortgage covered, but be able to cover all the expenses and cash flow a little bit. So
just to be clear, did you actually convert the 2-bedroom units into 3 bedrooms?
We didn't have to do anything they just, I think that it should have been listed as 3 bedrooms. Since the day we bought it, I've rented them out as 3-bedroom apartments every time without having to do anything.
Gotcha.
The vision of the layout, to some people, I don't know why you would need 2 dining rooms, but that's how they had it presented.
Dinner and second dinner.
Yeah. So what happened next? I mean, you and Eric have these great engineering jobs. You now have your first triplex and things are going well there. What is it that led you into making the decision, you know what, I want to go get my real estate license?
Yeah, it was pretty much as soon as we closed on that property and we we filled the units with tenants that were vacant, and we immediately started renovating the unit we live in. And again, I credit my parents and Eric's parents with everybody's very handy. I learned how to use construction equipment when I was 10. Eric's been flipping cars since he was little too. And so we were doing a lot of that construction ourselves. And meanwhile, I think we just kept learning online and quickly realized all of the wealthiest people in the world own a ton of real estate. So it's it's like eating chips. You can't have just one.
That's a good example.
So what actually happens then, in the timeline? So you go to real estate school, you get your real estate license, and are you thinking about just using it as a tool, to save commission, have access to MLS? What's your vision at that point?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we closed on that one in September of 2018. And then over Christmas break, I took 2 weeks off for Christmas as our office essentially shut down during that time, just regular Christmas break. I took the entire real estate class during that Christmas break and then got my license in February. So pretty short timeline. And initially it was exactly what you said. It was just a tool for us. I had no intentions of working with other people. I just wanted access to the MLS and to be able to go see properties on my own, and then also be able to recoup the commissions when we bought.
But we know that ultimately you decided to leave that engineering position and be a full-time real estate sales agent and investor. So I have to imagine a lot of people listening are assuming, what I know about engineering, probably you were getting paid a relatively decent salary with a plan to earn even more money as an engineer. And here you are making the decision fairly quickly that I'm going to get my real estate license and really start spending more time on this. What do you say to somebody who's maybe considering the same thing, but is maybe still sort of stuck on that salary, that guarantee, that safety cushion of that job?
Yeah, I would say that there's a pretty big middle of the story that we haven't told yet, that I hope will make it more obvious as to why I made that decision. But I had an awesome job. I can't speak highly enough about the engineering company I worked for. I had my own office. We had a dog friendly office. So my dog Benny, who is featured a lot on my Instagram, he every day. We had a full size beer fridge, not a little fridge, a full fridge full of beer at the engineering firm, every day.
I like this place already.
It's they took us whitewater rafting. My salary was great, bonuses, everything, all the benefits. This job is a great job.
You're painting it very. I'm almost there.
Great place. But it was. it wasn't until COVID hit that I really like started to realize that I wasn't going to be an engineer for my whole career. Like, even while we were continuing to acquire multi-units, those first 2 years, I still had not, it hadn't even crossed my mind that I would, number one, work with other clients as a sales agent, or like move into real estate full time. At this point, it was still like, great, we've both got these awesome engineering jobs. I'm going to do this for the rest of my career, rise up through the company I'm with that I loved at the time. And then COVID really was the kind of the catalyst that I think changed a lot.
What was it about COVID that, changed your mindset then?
So, I've always been really good at math, like, not to toot my own horn, I guess, that I was engineering, just like, again, it was something I never questioned. I like worked towards it since I was really little. And like I said, I loved my previous job. They had everything. They were also really unique. Like sometimes when you think of engineering, it's like kind of like a stuffy, like boring office. Everyone's wearing a tie. This was not that kind of place. But then when COVID hit and we moved remote, and it stripped away all the really like fantastic things about the job. And at that point, that was when it like really made it crystal clear that my day-to-day actual tasks and the job I was doing I just like wasn't really out for them. I'm very extroverted. I love people. And so once all of the benefits were kind of peeled away and we were virtual, I think just expedited a decision I probably would have realized later, in that I'm just like not cut out to be in that sort of engineering profession for my whole career. I really struggled for the first like 6 months, just not be like, all of a sudden I wasn't able to be productive. I didn't feel like I was working hard, which like I've always just like, that's kind of how I self-identify. I'm like a hard worker from a hardworking family who's able to like get a lot done. And that wasn't really possible for me anymore now that I was at home. And like my self-worth is very related to how much I produce and how much value I bring to others. And that was really when I was like, this isn't the right fit for me. And then kind of organically at the same time, because I had a flexible schedule, friends and family started to reach out for help as a realtor. And so I just helped a few friends and family buy homes in those first couple months. And then once I started doing that, I was like, I am like pretty good at this and I like it a lot. And the ability to be in real estate all the time, like that was very attractive too, just given that like it followed my goals and the path as far as like acquiring more multi-units and investment properties.
So it sounds like, I mean, as it did for many people, the pandemic really forced you into this, I won't say identity crisis, is more an identity evaluation. Or maybe a crisis too. I mean, at the very least, an evaluation of, what do I value most? Where do I want to spend my time and energy? How am I filled up? What do I assign significance to? And organically, as you're getting some of those things that even you mentioned, like, filling the extroverted bucket, being able to help people, tying it to production, which real estate sales is, you start to organically realize, hey, all these things that I'm missing over here, I can devote 100% of my time into real estate sales, and it actually fills me up and it keeps me in the vertical that we see as being our long-term wealth builder.
Definitely. Yep. All of those things. So in March of 2020, we moved remote for my engineering job. In March of 2021 was like, I think the 15th was my last day. So I gave them a month's notice in February. My final day was in March. And then within 6 months and so at that time we had 3 buildings that totaled 10 units. And then within the 6 months after my last day, we had more than doubled our portfolio. We bought 3 more buildings and we were up to 25 units by the end of 2021, like 6 months later. And then another 6 months went by, and I just had the highest GCI for March for solo agents, which was like right on my 12-month anniversary. So that's
awesome.
That come full circle.
So I want to ask about that a little bit, because were you primarily using your income from real estate sales that first year to fund the acquisition of these additional units? Or can you talk to us maybe a little bit about the financing on how you were able to so quickly double that portfolio?
Honestly, it was just the time. That was like the biggest catalyst. Because when like anyone who works a 9-to-5 job knows how hard it is to just like go to the bank or go to a doctor's appointment or like return a phone call that's not related to work forever. And it's very difficult to coordinate that. And then pile on top of that, all of the property maintenance we already had to coordinate. And Eric being also at work in the 9-to-5, it just like was impossible to get anything like done and make a lot of progress quickly. And so as soon as I was on the flexible schedule in real estate full time, it just gave me that much more time to generate leads. And I wouldn't say like, I pretty much just like replaced my salary. So it wasn't related. That didn't relate as much as finances go, but it was just the time to find the deals. One of the properties was a commercial. One of them we bought actually with an FHA loan. And then the last one was seller financing. And one of those also, the commercial was a joint venture too. So we've always tried to be creative with financing. And so the financing wasn't so much the bottleneck, it was really just the time. So having one of the team members being my husband and I, able to like do all the lead gen, call people back, deal with property maintenance when it came up, and do all of that like all day, every day, it really just like catapulted us forward.
Joe, it makes me think of, what you're talking about, Arden, makes me think of just like the law of diminishing returns, where when you have too many goals, you're going to be less and less likely to accomplish any of them. And it's not to say that you guys weren't making progress towards any of the goals that you had. You were, and yet what you found once you actually started to narrow in on one particular thing, where your time was now being spent 100% here, you see the velocity with which you were able to, you go from 3 buildings, 10 units in like a year and a half, 2 years of investing, to then doubling the portfolio in 6 months. I mean, that's wild. I mean, that's really, really big accomplishment there.
The other piece I love about that is you mentioned several different types of financing, and oftentimes, probably the most common thing that David and I hear when people are talking about why they haven't invested in real estate yet is because they think they don't have enough money. They don't have enough cash. The capital piece can oftentimes be a barrier to taking that first step. And you mentioned, for example, FHA. If you're going to move into your first investment property as your primary residence, you can use one of those government secured loans and get a smaller down payment. You mentioned a partnership with somebody else who I assume brought some money to the table as part of that down payment. You mentioned seller financing, my favorite type of financing, where you have the seller actually fund your mortgage for you. And so again, it goes back to this idea of self-education and knowing what tools are available so you can negotiate a better deal for yourself and make it happen a lot faster. And that's exactly what you guys have done.
Totally. Yeah. It was just like the time to educate ourselves on everything that's out there, all the possibilities, and be able to like talk to a lot of people who own real estate, other investors that are much bigger and more successful than we are. And then sellers just like look for properties. And we've bought, of the 6 buildings we own, we've bought 4 of them off market, just like contacting sellers directly.
So talk to us about that first year that you got your real estate license. And this is when you had stepped away from the engineering position. Talk to us about the sales side of it for a moment. You mentioned a few people sort of organically were reaching out to you. What did your sales look like that for, as far as your strategy go? And where was sort of the overlap between that job and your personal investment?
Yeah, I would say for the first couple months, it kind of felt like I was just like flying by the seat of my pants. The PC coaching program at KW Portland did a great job setting me up and kind of helping me figure out like, okay, if this is how much money you want to make, let's backtrack that to the actions you need to take to reach that goal. It definitely took me a little while to like get my footing and start to be consistent. I had some trouble having too many ideas about all the different marketing and strategies I should follow. And so it did take a little while for my routine to feel consistent. I was lucky in that I just got a lot of organic leads at the very beginning. And so it wasn't like, I would say like those second 6 months of my first year full time was when things really started to take off. And it came from a place of like me being consistent and doing the right things every day, even like if they were really small. So yeah.
So I'm curious, like where you want to take your portfolio. I mean, you're sitting here, you're 27 years old, you have, 25 units, like where are you going next?
Yeah. So the 25 units we have now is great. We calculated the other day, actually, that, I mean, again, also I'll caveat this by saying we live a pretty frugal lifestyle, but based on the 25 units we have now, we could technically retire and we would be able to support our current lifestyle, which isn't super glamorous, but without either of us bringing in any additional income, which is great. I would like to travel more, which we don't do very often now. I want to eat out like pretty much every day of the week. Given my like lofty expectations for my future lifestyle, I want to have enough passive income to support that. So our goal, and again, we're very numbers oriented, which is great, especially like real estate's very data driven, is to make $20,000 a month in passive income. And so we just backtracked that to figure out how many units we would need to support that. And that number for us is 200 units will provide us the passive income we need on a monthly and yearly basis, where we could like actually retire and have the very lofty lifestyle I plan on having in the future. So now we have 25 units. Our goal is to hit 200 by the time we're 35. So we've got like 7 years to do that.
Clock's ticking. The clock's ticking. Now, that's super awesome. And I have no doubt that you're going to get there and probably even sooner, because that's usually what happens with goal-oriented people. I'm wondering, I mean, with both of you working together as engineers, when you look at a property, and even some of the ones that you've acquired, are you looking for opportunities like in that very first one where you walk in and you're like, this should be a 3-bedroom? And like, are you looking to really like alter the orientation of a particular building so that you can maximize those rents? Like, what's your thought process as it pertains to that type of thing?
Yeah. So that first building ended up like when I'm sure you guys are familiar with like the 1% rule. We always want our monthly rental income to be more than 1% of the purchase price. So we bought that building for $495 back in 2018. And again, that was like, we quickly realized that those could all be 3-bedrooms. And then we were able to surpass the 1% rule. And that's something like we use as like a minimum benchmark for all our properties. The bigger building we just bought in Biddeford last year, it was another 3-story, 3-unit, 3-bedroom apartment scenario. And the thing we really liked about that building was that it had this huge vacant 3-story barn attached to the back of the building. We found it off market, and the current owner had owned it, I think, for like 7 years or so. He walked us through the barn. He just used it for storage. And we immediately were like, this could be a 4th unit. But he was just like, he had so much going on. He was never going to be able to capitalize on that. So because of that, we were able to pay him a price that worked for him for the 3 units, because we knew that within 6 months we would have a townhouse added onto it. And we bought that building it's actually this building my home office is in right now. We bought that in 2021 for $458, and we just refinanced it to get the cash out for all the money we invested in the construction, and it appraised at $800,000.
Wow.
Whoa. So you're sitting in a barn right now. I see the cat behind you.
Yeah, this is Trevor.
Hi, Trevor.
This is like, again, going back to my lifestyle not being super glamorous right now. We make a lot of lifestyle compromises in order to save money and so that we have more cash to invest in future properties. A pretty funny sort of pivot that happened kind of in the middle of the story was we bought our 3-unit, and then the building we bought right after that, like the 3-unit in Portland was our first one. The second building we bought was a single family home in South Portland that we bought because at the time I was like, I don't want to live with my tenants anymore. Like, I want a nice house. I want a yard. Like, I hope we'll get married soon. Like, I don't want to live in multis anymore. And so we bought this beautiful house in South Portland. The day we closed, Eric proposed. He got me the puppy I'd been badgering him for like 12 months. And we lived in that house for 2 years. Like 6 months after we bought it, we had a bunch of roommates move in, which was like the first kind of move typically in the wrong direction for someone who's just recently engaged. And then I quit my job, and then we bought those 3 new buildings, getting us up to the 25 number. And in order to do that, we moved out of the beautiful single family home with my dog's dream backyard. And now we live in a 3rd floor apartment in one of our multis. And that's the house, or that's the building that has that barn. And that being on site allowed us to complete that entire renovation project in under 6 months. And like, we started that renovation project like the week after our wedding, and did all of the construction ourselves. So like, nights and weekends after Eric got home from work, we worked in the barn. Like, all of our wedding gifts, like I got a trailer of lumber as a wedding gift. That was like one of the
I love it. Well, you used a phrase that I think is very interesting. We talk about lifestyle creep sometimes, where as our income starts to get higher and higher, so do our expenses, because we start to ascribe to this philosophy that we need to call it keep up with the Joneses, or we deserve to live a higher lifestyle or whatever. You use lifestyle compromise, which I thought was that's a catchy little phrase there. You move into the dream house, and then you quickly realize, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing to support where we want to go. And you're willing to, what some would say is take a step backwards. But in reality, for you and your goals, you're taking a step forward because it's moving you closer to your goal. And I think that's really admirable.
Well, it's a short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain, right? As you increase rents and as rates go up over time and appreciation continues to rise, the equity in those buildings is ultimately leading in part to your overall net worth, while simultaneously what it sounds like you were focused on really is the cash flow. How much do I need per month to offset my monthly living expenses and the ability to eat out every night and travel? And so we look at those two different components, and you're basically saying, I'm willing to make this sacrifice over the next few years so that by the time I'm 35, we could retire entirely and truly live a life by your own design. And so that's obviously the idea of trading the short term for the long term.
Definitely. And that dream house, like the big reason we moved out of that dream house was now we have tenants in it, and they pay $3,600 a month, and the mortgage is $1,700 a month. So it was pretty hard to make those numbers work in our like investor head.
Right.
It just was like not a decision that even could be made.
I do want to ask one question, Arden, about working with your husband. What maybe lessons have you learned, or how has that sort of distribution of responsibilities worked for you guys? How has it evolved over the last couple of years? And I guess just generally, what advice do you give to somebody that wants a partnership with their partner, right? They're either boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, so that they can actually work toward this common goal together.
Yeah, I will start by saying that I'm very grateful for Eric. We have a lot in common, given that we're both the engineering background. That's where we met. We have a lot of the same interests, which also makes working together easy. I've heard from other people that their home renovations have been like a source of contention. And luckily for us, like all of the things we've done for fun together from when we first started dating were like construction related projects. Like we rebuilt, I mostly just handed him tools and held the flashlight for his car rebuild in college. But we've spent a lot of time together building things. So given that we both have the engineering background, that makes things easy for the construction stuff we do together, which we have fun doing for the most part. As far as like the business operations, like we've kind of organically sort of delineated tasks. I generally take on more of the administrative side of things. And that again is mostly because I'm more available and I'm doing that sort of thing as a sales agent anyway. But I do all the showings when units turn over. I'm the one that like generally communicates with tenants and contractors. And like Eric is I would say is like kind of leading the charge on the acquisition side as far as researching properties and that sort of thing. I do a lot more like calling of people and so we've been lucky in that it's kind of, we naturally have different strengths and preferences. And we've been able to kind of just split up things that way. And again, given that I'm like in this space full time and he's still, he works full time as an engineer, it's just like, it's kind of a natural delineation and we do our best to try to keep things fun. Like we just filled that barn I mentioned. We finished that project in March. We filled the tenant April 1st. But we did spend like pretty much every night and weekend for the 6 months before that working in there. So yeah, we tried to make it fun, listen to loud music, like power tools. And that, I don't know if that's really advice, but just like try to stay positive. And we have a kind of a unsaid rule that only one of us can be having a bad day at a time. So if like he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed or is dealing with just like something awful, then that means it's my day to be like the cheerleader that everything's going to be fine. And we switch roles. Like if I wake up and everything's terrible, he, regardless of what he has going on, he just like puts on a smile and like handles everything else. So that helps.
I love it. That's awesome. So, I mean, you've had a large amount of success to this point. I'm curious, like, has there been anything where like you guys have stumbled, stuck on your knees, something that you might label as a failure that taught you and has helped you so that you're going to progress towards that 200 even quicker?
Yeah, we've had a lot of, it's like with anything, there's a lot of ups and downs. As far as like, when things were really hard for me, that goes back again to when I was still working full time as an engineer. When COVID first hit and I was like isolated all by myself in the house, Eric was still going into his plan every day. They never went remote. And so before we had roommates in that dream house, I was all alone and just like was just like, honestly, just like struggling to get anything productive done related to my engineering job. I mean, now it feels like a positive thing because it did kind of push me in the right direction. But it was hard to just like have that little identity crisis and feel like I wasn't able to contribute, that I wasn't doing good work anymore. And then as far as like, once we were really like in real estate, with me being in it full time, we haven't hit any huge stumbling blocks, knock on wood. However, I will say that given that we manage we manage like 15 of our 10 or 15 of our 25 units right now. The buildings we have in Lewiston, we have property management on, just they're a little too far away. But I'd say it's like for like 6 months, everything's perfect and we don't have any serious maintenance issues. Everything's great. All our tenants are awesome. And then we'll have like a 2 to 3 month stretch of like every single washing machine breaks, like all the sinks are leaking, like our tenants are late on rent. And it's like all the bad things feel like they pile up all at once. And it's like, it always pushes me almost to the point of being like, I can't manage these anymore, but then it all gets better. And then like 6 months later, I'm like, this is amazing. We make so much cash flow. Like I could do this forever. I could manage 200 properties. So yeah, right now everything is great. But like sometimes serious maintenance stuff comes up and like we're the maintenance team. So it's not a fun way to spend the weekend when that happens.
Good stuff, Arden. Your story is really cool, really inspiring, and I know people are gonna love listening to it all. I want to transition us into the last segment of our show, which is 3, 2, 1, action. It's the same 3 questions we ask every guest. Question number 1.
Here we go, Arden. Who is the one person that's had the biggest impact or influence on your business, and why?
Ooh, that is difficult. I immediately think of 3 people, which is probably against the rules. But I would
say the hat trick.
The first one is my husband, Eric. I wouldn't be able to do all the things I do without his support. And like I said, only one of us is allowed to have a bad day at a time. And given that, there's always one person on the team that's really optimistic and ready to dig into the next project. So I'm super grateful for him to have him as a life partner and also just as a business partner, because he has a ton of motivation and vision in this industry and life in general. He always keeps me going. And the other 2 people are my parents. Both of them are small business owners, and they on our first building, they came and helped us start the renovations. They were the ones that gave me the trailer of lumber as a wedding gift. And they have just been super supportive and helpful, and really taught me just how to work hard and get your hands dirty. So those would be my 3.
Super cool. And I guess we'll let you cheat. That's fine. So question number 2, what book has been most influential on your business and why?
Sorry, say that one more time.
What book has been most influential on your business and why?
I have read a lot of books. That it's tough to narrow it down. I would probably say The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, just very system oriented. It's also jam-packed. It's 15 books in one book. But I think when I was kind of having a hard time getting organized in the first 6 months of my time working as a full-time agent, I was advised to get that book and read it. And as soon as I did, it really opened my eyes to how to delegate better, how to organize my time better, and focus in on one thing at a time and really work on that one thing instead of 17, which is what I was doing previously.
Awesome. Awesome. The third and final question for you today, Arden, is, as you know, this is the All In podcast where we encourage our listeners to take what they've heard here today and go put it into action. So what's the one thing people should consider doing right now today to take the next step forward with their investment portfolio?
One thing, I would say, do a lot of research, learn how to, that's not, I'm thinking of a lot more than one thing. I think it's not being afraid to get out there and do it. We didn't always know if the step we were taking was the right step, but getting out there and doing a step is super important. So I would say, if you don't know what to do next, contact someone who does. There's a lot of ways to start. I would say contact a realtor if you don't already have one. If you're already an investor and you're wondering what to do next, find a bigger investor and see if they can mentor you. I would say, that would be my advice, is if you're not sure what the next right step is, then that step should be finding someone who does.
Very good. Love it. So Arden, you have mentioned a couple of times you're in Portland, Maine. Your story is inspiring. People are going to want to reach out. They're going to want to find more of your content. How can people get in touch with you or see more of your stuff?
So I've recently gotten to the Reels on Instagram. I think they're very funny. I think I'm very funny. I don't know if my husband agrees, but so you can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Sold with Arden. I post a lot of the same stuff on Facebook, but you can find me there too. There's not a lot of Ardens, so even if you forget the rest, Arden Stuckey should be the only one. I just send me a DM. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I try to be pretty responsive and get back to people quick.
Well, and for the record, I think your reels are hilarious too. I was going to bring it up today. I think you do a really great job of providing value to your audience while simultaneously staying really authentic to who you are, and you can really see your personality come out and your sense of humor come out in a lot of that content. So, for anybody that's wondering what kind of content to create for their business, definitely check out Arden's page. That's
awesome. I'm gonna have to check out your reels. I wasn't aware that there was a comedian in our midst, and I'm excited to connect with you on that. So, Arden, thanks so much for spending time with us. This was super valuable. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to connecting with you again very soon. So with that, guys, this has been another episode of the All In Podcast. As always, go play All In.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play All In.